So there's a couple of ways to do detailing on an internal wall. We can see internal wall here, and I can toggle backwards and forwards between thin and thick lines. You can see the stud wall here, and there's a line in the background is a structural steel column. And I've already made up a couple of little details. Here is a 90 by 45 detail item. It's a filled region with a cross through it, and just made it into a group which I've called 90 by 45. So yeah, from the groups detail, I can just drag and drop and place that any time. The insertion point, probably, I think if I can drag that onto the corner, that will be there on the next time, yeah. So I can place it straight in there, which is handy for doing that sort of thing. Here we have a suspended ceiling running through a wall, so a bit of tidy up to do here and there. But if I, again, same, bring in a 90 by 35, just placed it at the top. Thin lines, I can spin it around, I can rotate it, mirror it, yeah, copy so that it's there, just to put it in the right place. You can also see at 1 to 50, the wall's very heavy, sometimes easier to, or good idea to use the button here called line work, or you can type in LW and we can override the lines that are there, go to thin lines, just to take some of the heat out of that. If things are a little bit heavy sometimes, use it sparingly. We don't need our drawings to be too anemic. We need a bit of contrast between thick and thin and all that sort of thing. On the edge here, I'd like to put in a .265 by 45 timber on the edge, and I can drag in my 90 by 45, do the editing of it and all that sort of thing. I'll show you another little method. What I'll do is I'll go to New Family, scroll down to our metric detail items. So this is in detailing 2D only, and there's one that's called a line-based metric detail, line-based, and here's where I'll create the filled region here, and I shall pop the filled region in nearby and use a line. If I align to the reference planes, lock them onto the reference planes, as the reference plane moves, so will my filled region. And so it's locked into all of those. The height here, I'll pick on the little dimension symbol, which will make it a dimension, and I shall make that a 45mm filled region and lock that dimension. So that'll stay like that as a filled region. And duplicate. Solid white filled region, we'll make that in a solid fill and a colour of white. And okay, use detail line. When we're in family making mode, we need to use create and then line, making sure using light lines and crossing from one side to the other, and I'll flex it just to make sure that it's working when I say flex, I'll just change the length of that line base, making sure that the cross lines will follow along and go with it. This dimension here is the line based, and this is the one I would like to make sure that it's going to be, I think it's as an instance rather than in a length. Bring it in and I'll show you what I mean. So I'll call this a 90 by 45. Call it line based just so that I remember what it is. I'll pop it onto the desktop so that I can drag it off into my preferred space later on. Load into project. Back onto where we were. Give it a go. Yeah, so it can stretch to whatever length it needs to be. So I can come into here, I'll go thin lines, locate where I want this to go. Spacebar won't let me do it on the other side. So I probably need to come up from under there. And it was 265. So that's using a line-based method. And it's just pretty handy. You can actually use that for noggings or any of those sort of things. How do we get to it later, given that it's probably not sitting in here now as a detail group to drag and drop necessarily. It's actually a detail item. Annotate. And we can go across to component. And I've got a nogging that I know is 70 millimeters across here. That's there. This is our 90 by 45 line based, and in amongst that we can create two families, a 45 and a 35, because the nogging would be probably a 70 by 35 in a traditional residential sense anyway. So that seemed to work so far. Let's go back to it, and I'll pop the dimension from that reference plane. Actually, there should have been a dimension on there already. Hit a boundary. Ah, there it is. I can attach a parameter to a dimension. I'll unlock that 45, and from up here with that dimension selected, we can create parameter, and I'll call this parameter the depth for timber and OK. And I'll just so how do we make that as a preset? If we come into this little button here, let's hold on where that was, up into our properties, there's a family types, and there's actually no family types in here at all at the moment. The length default is that's the one that we can stretch and drag as we need, so it doesn't matter what's written there. At the moment where it says 45, if I change that to a 35, as I pick apply, I'm hoping that that filled region of 45 will reduce down to 35, and importantly that the cross line running through will stay and follow it along too, which they didn't. So I shall drag them off and drag it back onto the end of that. Here's a little lock that's popped up. It's locking onto that top part of the line. This is called flexing a model. So lock in there that I'd like to get to, zoom, 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 zoom. Just test to make sure that change back to 45, have a look and make sure that it's gone, which seems to be okay. I'll do that as a 90 millimeter just to see if it works. So yeah, we've just got a flexible solid white filled region, and we can set it up some different heights. So create a new type within here. I'll call 35 with a depth of 35 and pick apply. I shall go new 45. Change that to 45, click apply. And I'll also do an 86, so I can use this as a filled region, as a weep-hole when I need to. 86, and apply, and OK, and load into project. So that's given, and so I need to override the existing version and its parameter values. Back to my section, and I'll ditch that. Come back into my components. I've now got my 90 by 45 line base, which I probably need to rename because it's got 35, 45, and an 86. So 70 by 35. Can be placed like that. This 90 by 45 can be component 45. And we can see there, it looks like it's on 86. Probably need to check. I think I put in the 86 when I was doing the 45. Yes, I did 45 and apply. Okay, load into project. Override the existing units parameters. Component from the annotate tab, 45 from the bottom across. Should give a 45 millimeter. Note that there and there. It's using a line based. So I probably need to save as family, back onto the desktop is fine. I'll just need to take off the size. Instead of being a 90 by 45 line based, I'll call it a plate line based rather than having a specific size associated with that.